Finally, after a silence that stretched like a knife, Brandon's voice cut through the night. The yacht engines roared to life. The vessel glided away, its lights shrinking until they dissolved into the horizon. Ethan was left with nothing but the black water and the crushing realization that the two people he trusted most in the world had just tried to erase. The Atlantic was no place for a man at night. The waves heaved, pulling him under again and again. His limbs burned with exhaustion. He thought about letting go, just slipping beneath the surface and ending it. But survival clawed at him, stubborn and relentless. Each stroke forward was a fight, but memories fueled him. Vanessa's kiss on their wedding day. Brandon's voice at his father's funeral. "I'll always have your back, brother." Lies, all of it. But the sting gave him strength. Hours dragged by. His skin shriveled in the salt water, his throat raw from swallowing seawater. At one point, he slammed into driftwood, splitting his brow. Blood trickled into his eyes, but he kept swimming. He thought of the resorts, of his employees, of the empire he had built from nothing. He would not let the two of them inherit his life so easily. At dawn, when the sky softened to grey, he saw land, a jagged stretch of the Everglades coast. With the last of his strength, he crawled onto the sand, collapsing in a heap of seaweed and blood. Lying there, shivering on the shore, Ethan realized something profound. The man he had been, the trusting husband, the loyal friend, had died the moment Vanessa and Brandon pushed him into the ocean. What crawled out of the waves was someone new, someone harder, someone who would never again mistake smiles for loyalty or soft words for love. They thought he was dead. The whole world would think he was gonna, because that gave him the one weapon neither Vanessa nor Brandon would see coming. Time. Time to heal, time to plan, time to rise from the ashes. As the sun broke through the horizon, Ethan Caldwell swore an oath to himself. He wasn't going to just survive. He was going to come back. And when he did, Vanessa and Brandon would wish they had left him at the bottom of the ocean. Ethan woke to the sound of gulls circling above him and the rustle of mangroves in the wind. Every inch of his body ached. His throat burned with salt water, his head throbbed from the gash near his brow, and his muscles screamed from the night-long battle against the sea. But he was alive, and that was enough. He dragged himself farther inland, stumbling through the marshland. The sun was merciless, beating down on his torn clothes and blistered skin. For hours he wandered in a daze, his only thought to find shelter, water, and a moment to breathe. By dusk, he collapsed near a shack perched on the edge of the Everglades. The shack belonged to Miguel Alvarez, a fisherman in his 60s who recognized Ethan instantly. Years earlier, Miguel's family had nearly lost their boat in a storm, and Ethan, quietly, without publicity, had paid to replace it. Miguel hadn't forgotten. "Senor Caldwell?" Miguel asked, astonished, as he helped the battered man inside. "Dios mío. They said you drowned." Ethan rasped, voice hoarse but steady. Let them believe that. For weeks, Ethan lived in Miguel's shack. The fisherman's wife nursed his wounds with herbal salves and broth, while Miguel brought newspapers and whispers from the outside world. Vanessa and Brandon had wasted no time. They had staged a memorial service so grand it dominated headlines. Cameras captured Vanessa draped in black lace, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Brandon stood solemnly beside her, the very image of a grieving best friend. Investors, moved by their shared loss, welcomed them as the new faces of Caldwell Resorts. But what cut deepest was the photographs Miguel laid out on the table one evening. There was Vanessa, radiant in a crimson gown, her hand clasped tightly in Brandon's at a charity gala, barely a month after Ethan's death. The caption read, "Resilience in Tragedy, Caldwell Resorts' new power couple. They think they buried me," he whispered. "But they've only given me the shadows to work from." Ethan had always been meticulous in business, and now he applied the same discipline to vengeance. He mapped it out like an architect designing a skyscraper. Step 1, secure his leverage. Years before, anticipating lawsuits and hostile takeovers, Ethan had quietly registered a shell corporation in Delaware. Through it, he retained control of certain voting rights in Caldwell, resorts unknown to both Vanessa and Brandon. With Miguel's help, he contacted a trusted lawyer who confirmed the paperwork was still airtight. Step 2. Expose their corruption. Ethan hired a private investigator, a sharp ex-FBI agent named Carla Reyes. Working in secrecy, Carla dug into Brandon's finances and discovered what Ethan suspected: millions siphoned off through offshore accounts, laundered with Vanessa's help. She also uncovered a damning recording. Brandon's careless late-night phone call in which he bragged, "When Ethan went overboard, it was the easiest deal I ever closed." Step 3. Choose the moment. Ethan didn't want to simply appear alive. He wanted to rise at the precise time when Vanessa and Brandon were at the peak of their stolen glory, so that the fall would be catastrophic. That moment came 6 months later. Caldwell Resorts announced its annual gala at the Plaza Hotel in New York City, a glittering event for investors, celebrities, and the press. Vanessa and Brandon billed it as the launch of their global expansion, unveiling resorts planned in Dubai and Monaco. The ballroom shimmered with chandeliers and champagne fountains. Vanessa dazzled in a diamond-studded gown, Brandon by her side in a tuxedo, both smiling for cameras. To the world, they were unstoppable. Ethan stepped inside, every head turning as whispers rippled through the crowd. He wore a midnight blue suit, his posture straight, his eyes burning with purpose. The photographers froze, unsure if they were seeing a ghost. Vanessa's glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the marble floor. Brandon's face drained of color. "Good evening," Ethan said, his voice calm but cutting through the silence. "Forgive my lateness. I suppose travel from the grave takes longer than expected." Gasps erupted. Reporters surged forward. The cameras clicked furiously. Ethan walked to the stage as if he owned it, because he did. He picked up the microphone, locking eyes with Vanessa and Brandon. "For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ethan Caldwell, founder of Caldwell Resorts. I see my successors have done a fine job convincing you all that I've been dead. Unfortunately for them, death didn't take." With a nod, Carla Reyes, hidden in the crowd, signaled the tech team Ethan had hired. The ballroom screens flickered to life, displaying a stream of documents, bank records and wire transfers, offshore accounts linked to Brandon, false charities under Vanessa's name. Then came the recording. Brandon's voice filled the room. "Just push him, Vanessa. Once he's gone, it's ours." The crowd erupted. Gasps, shouts, flashes of phones recording every moment. Investors turned on Vanessa and Brandon instantly, their expressions twisting from admiration to disgust. Vanessa tried to step forward, her voice trembling. "This is a setup." But Ethan cut her off. "The only thing set up was me. You staged my death, you tried to erase me, and tonight the world sees you for what you are." On cue, federal agents entered the ballroom. Carla had ensured the evidence reached the Justice Department. Vanessa and Brandon were handcuffed under the blinding flash of cameras, their glamorous facade crumbling into horror. The next morning, headlines dominated every screen in America. "Billionaire returns from the dead, exposes wife and best friend's murder plot." Caldwell resurrection, betrayal, survival, justice. Investors rallied to Ethan. Employees cheered his comeback, their loyalty doubling when he promised transparency and a new profit-sharing model for staff. He wasn't just reclaiming his empire, he was remaking it stronger, sharper, cleaner. Yet behind the triumph, Ethan carried invisible scars. The betrayal of the two people he loved most could never be erased. Some nights, he would wake in a sweat, reliving the moment he hit the cold water, hearing Brandon's voice echo. Finally. Weeks later, Ethan stood again on the deck of the Horizon, his yacht restored and gleaming. He had taken it out alone, needing to face the ocean that had almost claimed him. The waves lapped gently, nothing like the monstrous swells of that night. Ethan raised a glass of whiskey, the golden liquid catching the setting sun. "To betrayal," he said softly, staring at the horizon, "and to the man it made me become." The sea gave no answer. But in its silence, Ethan felt something he hadn't in months: peace. He knew one thing for certain: Vanessa and Brandon had written his obituary too soon. His comeback wasn't just survival, it was legend. And Ethan Caldwell was only getting started. His wife and his best friend pushed him off the yacht. They thought he died, but his comeback was